We've got less than 21 days, folks. 8.3 million people could be losing their jobs. The stock market rally fall by 45%, hurting the accounts of those saving for retirement. Those still working would be squeezed by even higher interest rates. Mortgage rates, for example, might rise further after already spiking from about 3% in December 2021 to 6.4% this month. That is the worst case scenario if our government doesn't pull their heads out of their you-know-whats and get the debt ceiling approved. So this week, President Joe Biden and House Speaker Kevin McCarthy are set to sit down again, hoping to compromise their own terms and conditions. But they're coming from polar opposites, these two. House Republicans passed their own version of a debt ceiling, but all it boils down to is shutting down 125 air traffic control towers, slashing nutrition services for 1 million senior citizens, and eliminating affordable housing assistance for nearly 1.1 million families. Really? I'm concerned about the elderly here. The military widows living off of Social Security, SSI, SSDI, and military pensions and benefits. It's really a disgrace that the United States does not seem to care anything about their vets and the military veteran families the way that other countries have. I mean, how are the elderly supposed to live, right? And that's just the start of it. They could slash benefits to Pell Grants, nutritional assistance, childcare, food stamps, EBT, SNAP, and even Medicaid. Yeah, I wish I was kidding here, but this is really what's in their bill. Here's the clip.
Mr. Speaker, the fiscal state of the nation is bleak. Our national debt is unsustainable, and the outlook grows more uncertain every day. For 100 years, the debt ceiling has served as a check on our accumulating debt and its impact on the financial health of our nation. No responsible leader can look at the rapid deterioration of our balance sheet and the unsustainability of our deficit spending and stand idly by defending status quo.
President Biden has maxed out the nation's credit card. That's what the debt ceiling is. That's what this debate is about.
I rise in strong opposition to the extreme MAGA Republican Default on America Act. This reckless Republican effort to lead us down the road of a dangerous default will hurt working families, hurt the middle class, hurt all those Americans who aspire to be part of the middle class.
Yeas are 217, the nays are 215, the bill is passed.
You ever wonder why when these politicians talk about saving money and reducing spending, it always leads to regular people's benefits getting cut? And you know what doesn't get cut? The Pentagon budget. More guns for wars and all that. No cuts to the politicians' salaries. Do you guys think that's fair? Drop me a quick comment, yes or no, down below. So yeah, all this and more later in our video today, so don't miss a second of it. Also, if you own a home, never be caught off guard by another very expensive home repair again. Get your free home warranty quote, link in the description down below of this video. All right, guys, so it's the last 2 minutes of this ball game, and we're left with a little less than 3 weeks before the U.S. hits its debt ceiling, which, by the way, is the max that it can borrow to pay its bills. Now, if this happens, it could very well cause a total disaster and send the economy into a deep recession. Republicans are being stubborn, and they won't take action unless Biden agrees to spending cuts, which Biden says is holding the country's credit hostage. Now, the situation has become even more urgent after the Treasury Department warned that the government might not be able to pay its bills as soon as June 1st. Now, this has freaked out lawmakers and made Biden invite McCarthy, Schumer, McConnell, and Jeffries to a meeting at the White House. Now, this is serious stuff because if they don't make some progress, it could shake up the entire stock market even more. Investors are already jumpy, and credit rating agencies have said that they might downgrade the U.S.'s credit rating because of all of the dysfunction. Last time that happened, the stock market crashed big time. White House Press Secretary Karine Jean-Pierre compares it to making your monthly payments, since the debt ceiling reflects money that both political parties have already spent. Quote, if you buy a car, you are expected to pay the monthly payments. If you buy a home, you're expected to pay the mortgage every single month. That is the expectation. So you're telling them or saying to them, do your job, pay for something that you've already spent on, that's it, end quote. But this just made the Republican honchos dig into their heels even more. They're pretty much determined to use the debt ceiling as a weapon for politics. Representative Chip Roy, a bigwig in the far-right House Freedom Caucus, he made it very clear that the GOP won't support a clean debt ceiling. He's backing a bill that got passed by the chamber last month, which links a short-term increase in borrowing power with spending cuts and other priorities. Now, we're going to talk more about that bill later, along with the benefit cuts that they're proposing here. And yes, it is going to affect all of us, even our Social Security fam that's watching right now. But first, let me just call shade here right quick, all right? So Republicans are all up in arms over spending cuts and getting this debt ceiling under control. But where were they when former President Donald Trump was pumping the country's debt sky high? Here's what I'm talking about here. So when Trump was president, the GOP made sure to avoid default without making any demands to lowering borrowing, even after Trump passed a tax overhaul in 2017 that added to the federal debt. But ever since Biden became the boss, Republicans have been using the X date to push their agenda, which has ticked off the Democrats who basically think this tactic is risky and two-faced. So just last month, the House Republicans made their move by passing a bill that would jack up the debt ceiling until next year. But there's a catch. They want to chop federal spending by over $3.5 trillion over the next decade. They want to cancel President Biden's plan to clear student debts and also put new work requirements on people who receive Medicare or I should say Medicaid and food stamps, EBT, and SNAP benefits. Kind of sneaky, but really guys, you gotta see what's inside this bill. Let me read out the important parts that could really hurt our wallets and daily cash flow. So the proposal would return funding to federal agencies to fiscal 2022 levels while aiming to limit the growth in spending to 1% per year. The Pentagon budget would be spared any reduction. Yes, let me repeat that. The Pentagon's budget would be spared any reduction. Examples the agency gave including shutting down the 125 air traffic control towers, slashing nutrition services for 1 million senior citizens, and eliminating affordable housing assistance for close to 1.1 million families. Also, the reduction would also impact 6.6 million students who rely on Pell Grants and the 1.2 million women, infants, and children who receive nutritional assistance through WIC. Plus, 200,000 children would lose access to the Head Start, and 100,000 children would lose access to childcare. Now, the bill would block President Joe Biden's student loan forgiveness program, which promises up to $20,000 in debt relief for low and middle income borrowers from taking effect. McCarthy's plan would rescind the $80 billion that is set to go to the IRS over the next decade. Republicans have made the funding a political target, but rescinding the money would actually increase the deficit by $114 billion through 2032. According to the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office. So what's up with that, right? Now, this next part is where it really gets dicey for everybody. The bill would fulfill Republicans' long-standing goal of beefing up work requirements in food stamps and adding them to Medicaid. Under this plan, childless, able-bodied adults aged 18 to 55 would be able to get food stamps only for 3 months out of every 3 years unless they are employed at least 20 hours a week or meet other criteria. Currently, that mandate applies to ages 18 through 49, though it has been suspended during the C-19 public health emergency, which expires on May 11th. It would also require certain adult Medicare recipients to work, perform community service, or participate in an employment program for at least 80 hours a month or earn a certain minimum monthly income. Now, the bill would also make changes to the work requirement provisions of the Temporary Assistance for Needy Families program. This was created out of the 1996 Welfare Reform Package. All in all, the measures would lead to fewer people receiving aid from these safety net programs, which would save the federal government money by taking it away from the people who need it most. What do you guys think? I'd love to hear from you guys in the comments down below. Now, McCarthy described the measure as an attempt to force Democrats to the negotiating table. Now, the president threatened to veto the bill dubbed the Limit, Save, Grow Act, which Schumer announced that his chamber would not consider it. Democratic leaders instead called for an increase in the debt ceiling without conditions, which Republicans universally have rejected. Now, all these different disagreements are a huge deal for the Tuesday meeting between President Biden and his crew of congressional leaders. They're racing against time to save the country from a major fiscal disaster. Now, Biden and the House Speaker are total enemies, with no relationship to help them cut a deal in such a short period of time. Plus, the lawmakers are only going to be in session here and there this month, so their bosses basically have a tiny window to sort out a crisis that could only be weeks away. So yeah, while the country is on its way to a financial meltdown, Congress is taking breaks every other day, taking trips, vacations, whatnot. Definitely not a good look here for our top government official, right? What do y'all think? Now, if the government defaults, it could totally wreck the economy, messing with Social Security and other federal services and leaving millions of Americans without jobs. That would have a ripple effect on the global financial system, and it could cause the worst downturn since the pandemic. But let me reiterate what's on the line right here. You got 8.3 million who could lose their jobs. Stock market could fall by 45%, hurting the accounts of those with 401ks, IRAs, investment accounts. Those who are still working would be squeezed by even higher interest rates. Mortgage rates, for example, might rise even further after already spiking from about 3% in December 2021 to 6.4% this month. Economists are saying that these scenarios loom over a United States that's already already at risk of a recession. Deutsche Bank projects a recession to begin at the end of this year thanks to the Fed's rate hikes essentially stomping on the brakes of our economy. High inflation is still outpacing wage gains, and Americans had to tap into their savings just to make ends meet. Households saved a total of $1.6 trillion before the pandemic, but now they're sitting on about $1 trillion in savings. Credit card rates at almost 24% loom over $986 billion in credit card balances, surpassing the pre-pandemic high by $59 billion. Now, in addition to high borrowing costs and concerns that the job market will just reverse course soon, the Conference Board's measure of consumer expectations is at levels associated with a recession within the next year. So, a U.S. debt default on top of the U.S. recession. Not a good mix here. I wonder how many people are going to be able to survive that. Are you guys prepared? Are we just going to be left with the Elon Musks and Jeff Bezos of the world? Now, even just the possibility of a default has freaked out Wall Street, causing chaos in the bond markets and making Scope Ratings, a major company in Europe, say that it might downgrade the United States if it can't avoid defaulting. Now, that's a second warning in the past month. As people get even more worried about a federal default, some of the White House officials have already been talking about using the 14th Amendment to get around the debt ceiling if Congress doesn't act. But some insiders think that it could be a bad move, leading to lawsuits, scaring off investors, and making borrowing even more expensive. Janet Yellen didn't say no to the idea, but she did make it clear that Congress needs to act fast because there's no other good options. In short, this is the time to tune in and make sure you do not miss an update, guys. Make sure to hit the subscribe button now and also tap that notification bell. You guys know I always got your back. All the latest developments in the story coming at you guys on the next one. But for now, we're counting down less than 21 days before we see people's benefits getting cut and the tax returns getting even more delayed. Yeah, not looking forward to seeing that. Let's keep an eye on this one, and also let's just see what these lawmakers can pull off in this 11th hour, shall we? Appreciate you guys watching today. Also, for the very best way to invest in gold or silver, check out the links in the description down below. Appreciate you guys dropping a like and sharing this video, and I'm gonna see you on the next one.